Hey folks, my name is Matt Klein and I'm from WSG, and we are an insight to innovation company. The first thing that we're doing as a company, because we're brand new, is that we're going to write a couple books. The book is called 90-Day Job Detox. Now, in beginning to write it, a lot of things that I do start with an idea or the thing you want to end up building, but you have to build the tools in order to build the thing. So in order to write the book, I had to build a tool, and that's called the culture Playfield. You'll see, if we've ever done work together, you know that I create these things called Playfields, which are systems, systemic thinking about how different elements work together and how you can hack into those interworkings to create something great. In the culture Playfield, last time we talked about the very center of it being the aspirations of the people on your team. So what are the things that they aspire to? And from there, we broke them into three spots. One is self, so their aspirations for self, aspirations for business, and aspirations for the world. This is for me. This is to build this great business. This is to change the world, essentially. And as you think about those things, you can think that you've probably felt all three of those things in close quarters. So when you think about self, it's not just one type. And I broke it into two spots. The first one is what I'm calling a survivor. And then the second one is I call an advancer. Now, these are a little different than maybe what you've heard me call them in the past. In big companies, a lot of times I'll call them risers and settlers, and similar in the way it works. A survivor, they're overcomers. These are people who are committed to stay. They want to stay. They want to stay forever. They never want to leave. They never want you to let them go. And they'll live their lives in a way to survive within your structure. We do need in business people who are willing to do whatever it takes, whatever we ask them to do to get the work done. The next one is someone we call an advancer. This is somebody who is going to, for themselves, look to grow their own personal brand. Where the survivor is risk averse, they're going to take safe paths all the time. This person is going to risk and bet it all on themselves. So you'll see them taking chances and risks, hoping that those risks will help elevate them and continue to grow them up within your organization. So we get people who are really focused on themselves and their own personal brand and stuff. And there are people who are company people. A lot of times survivors will come into a entrepreneurial company, so you'll have your entrepreneurs in the foxhole creating all these crazy things. But after you build your product, you have to put some grown-up systems and structures around those things so you don't get sued. So you have a process so you can pay your bills, you can pay your employees, etc. So the advancer within the business, they're looking to build this really strong brand that they're proud of. The advancer in the self is an I person. So a lot of times when they talk about, they'll have an I problem that they like to talk about. I did this, I did this, I did this. An advancer in a business, they have a we problem. And so what they'll do is they'll build their brand based on awards, build their brand based on obvious differences versus the competition. The last one is the people who are looking at the world and saying, I really want my life to be about making the world a better place. Through business or through nonprofit or through just being a good neighbor or whatever. And in that case, you have the same things too. You have survivors. And these are people who are just like, man, this world is a horrible place. I'm going to survive because the world's a scary place and I got to protect myself from the world. So maybe you can feel that. I think I feel a little bit of that sometimes. But the advancer is the person who goes, the world is a scary place, and they say, how do we make it a better place? How do we go into the chaos and to create things that are going to meet people at their struggle and help solve those problems and elevate everybody in the process. The difference between those two is the data, I think. When I've worked for companies that have been focusing in on being better than other businesses, based on whatever metric, I find that they use data to defend themselves. Data, though, if you are on the world side, is you use data to inspire. So are you using your data to defend your space? Are you sending surveys out so that everybody knows that the people who use your stuff gives it 5 stars? So you get a good report card? Or are you using data in a way to understand better what the struggle is at the point where your product comes in. and so that you can build your product to meet their needs, help them with that struggle better. So data, am I collecting data to build my brand as a company, or am I collecting? And you're going to have to do that. But am I also building data to say, you know what, Matt, you're really not good at this thing, and this thing is so important to your people in the world, to be a sobering voice, to use the data in that way. Now, the survivors and the advancers in the world spot, they use data. They both use data. They're all responding to data. So they're looking out there and they're saying, wow, what is really happening in the Gemba? What is happening in the real world? And the data will tell them. It could be everything from what their customers are saying and how their needs are changing, culture changing, policy changing, resources changing, forecast changing, economy changing, new technological advances. These are all things that are kind of sensed with the data. Or it may be things where it's like there's a real volatility in the culture, and your survivor is going to say, you know what, we need to live to fight another day. Your advancer might say, you know what, this is really volatile. Why is it volatile? And to really dig in and understand what that tension is with the customer. Why is this volatile? And is there an opportunity that comes from that volatility that you can make a positive advancement move? So those are your pieces. There are 6 pieces. Now, we talked about in the past, last week, that I don't believe that toxic work environments are from one person or 2 people or whatever, but they're because of systems that are built in such a way that creates a compound that's toxic versus you're dropping in something that's toxic. And if you're not from Detroit, sorry about this, but as football is a big thing to us here in Detroit. And if you listen to the sports talk radio folks, you'll hear them talking about culture and how important that is. With Dan Campbell, if you watch any of his stuff, culture is 100% most important. And they talk about sometimes that you can bring in somebody who's highly talented, who's a real jerk, but that culture, if you put them in there, that culture can surround them and make it so that person can both thrive and it doesn't take down the culture within your organization. So that's kind of a picture of how you can do it within business. Dan Campbell would probably say is, you know what, I'm not even bringing that person in because I can find a person who is both talented and someone who really fits our culture. So that's what we're going to start with. Next time, I'm bringing together some experts in my life who run businesses, and we're going to use this to take these elements and put them together to create the most toxic work environments we can possibly. So think of your org chart. We're going to take our survivors and our advancers on all these levels, and we're going to slot them in to try to create a chemistry that is deadly within a company. So we're going to see if they can take their expertise and these models to use them for bad. And then, of course, after that, we'll figure out how to use them for good. So hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great day. Bye.